Since I was in high school, there's been one country that I've always wanted to travel to, and that is the country of Japan. Japan is a country that has its roots dating back to 8300 and is rich in its own culture and communication. It has always fascinated me how other countries speak and communicate both verbally and non-verbally with one another, and the importance of their own language and culture to them. I've always understood the importance of learning about other cultures and how to effectively communicate with them. So the question is, how do the Japanese people communicate within their own society? First, I'll talk about the importance of nonverbal communication within the Japanese society. Japan, which is also a high context culture, often relies on nonverbal cues more than they do verbal cues. With any country, emotions and eye contact are important, as they are in Japan. With eye contact, direct eye contact, often in the United States is viewed as a positive, but in Japan it's often viewed as a negative, being viewed as intimidating or aggressive. In Alan Goldman's book, Doing Business with the Japanese, published by Albany State New York University New York Press, he states, control of emotions is hardly considered on the Japanese side of the Pacific. What this means is emotions are often viewed as something that needs to be controlled, and when they're not, it can be extreme and informal. Body language is often used to settle conflicts between one another through nonverbal ways. With this, it's important for the Japanese people to have a close proximity to one another, using that to bridge these conflicts silently. An example of this is when, say, if two Japanese businessmen have a disagreement at work, they'll often go to a restaurant, a formal restaurant, where they'll sit knee to knee to each other, having an intimate distance, and being able to bridge the conflict silently without using any verbal communication. Second, I'll talk about the importance of silence in communication with the Japanese people. Silence is often viewed as an effective way to communicate within the Japanese culture. In Alan Goldman's book, again, he states, silence often carries more weight than needless talk. What this means is it's often viewed as a way to save time, and it's also understanding that a lot of nonverbal cues can be used to say what's needed to say. With verbal communication, silence also plays a huge role in the form of hesitation. Hesitation is used as a way for one to gather one's thoughts and to effectively communicate to the speaker without no ill harm. With that, there's also a negative view of verbal communication to the Japanese people. In Nakifuki's article, Role of Influences on Japanese Communication, sponsored by Canada University of International Studies, it's stated, not to say is often better than to say. What this means, it's often better to keep things to yourself, and this ties into nonverbal, again, as it's used as a way to communicate. In that same article on Japanese proverbs of language, 504 proverbs were taken. 25% of these proverbs were viewed as positive towards language, while 63% were negative, and the last 12% were viewed as neutral. What this shows is just the overall view in Japanese culture on communication and how it's a negative and can hurt lots of relationships. In my speech, I spoke on the importance of understanding Japanese culture and communication and the importance to the Japanese people themselves. With all this information learned, will this help us improve communication with the Japanese people? My answer to this question is yes. This will help with intercultural communication and to help gather an understanding of the Japanese people and culture.